If you're an entrepreneur and expert with a podcast who's been publishing valuable content for years, but you're on the verge of quitting your show because it's all starting to feel like a giant waste of time. No matter how much time or effort you put into the show, it doesn't seem to grow. You don't seem to gain traction. And although you might get a few handful of people who mention how impactful your content is, it's very hard to keep motivated when you hit publish and see that the show simply isn't growing. Likelihood is your show probably hasn't been growing for 6 months, maybe 12 months, maybe it's not been growing for over 2 years. And you're now again really considering whether or not to quit the show. This is a spot that so many podcasters find themselves in. And I want to make this video to let you know that you absolutely should not quit your podcast for this simple reason. Imagine for a second you have a friend who's trying to get into shape. And they decide to start working out, so they go to the gym. 6 months go by and they've been working hard and working consistent at the gym. However, they're kind of basically in the same spot. They've barely really lost any weight. They don't really look shredded. And then you have another friend who again started his gym 6 months ago, but now, today, he's completely shredded. He looks amazing and his energy is totally different. And you're wondering to yourself, what the hell, how come we've got two friends who, one wanted to get fit, the other wanted to get fit. However, 6 months down the line, one of them is still exactly in the same spot, and the other one is shredded and completely in shape. So you speak to both of them, and you notice that your friend who didn't lose weight, well, all he did was just go to the gym, train 3 times a week, and just stayed consistent. But then when you spoke to your other friend, he mentioned how he instantly got a personal trainer who helped him with his dieting. He was able to track his macros. He had an entire strategy to help him get shredded and get into shape. He knew exactly what exercise to do at the gym. And he mentioned how he got coaching from that person every single day. So over the last 6 months, he's made tremendous progress. But why is that? Well, it's simple. Your friend who got shredded because he was not only being consistent and working hard, but he had an actual strategy to hit his goal. Whereas your other friend, although he was working hard and consistent for the 6 months, he was just showing up, doing whatever he thought he could do rather than having a real strategy. Now, if that friend said to you, hey, look, I'm going to quit the gym because it's not really worth it. I've tried it. I gave it a good go, but I can't really lose weight. And you asked him, okay, have you been dieting? Have you had a coach? And he said to you, no. He said, well, okay, what's been your strategy? You mentioned after you've been going hard, working consistently. What would you say to them? Would you say to them, hey, yeah, you should quit? Or would you say to them, actually, you should probably get a personal trainer who can help you build a strategy to help you hit the goal you're trying to reach? Now, look, why the hell am I sharing the story about someone being overweight and then another friend who's getting into shape? The reason why I'm sharing this and what this has to do with you and your journey in podcasting. Look, if you're an entrepreneur and expert with a podcast, the truth is you can do it. Your content likely is incredible. You can grow the podcast and it's very possible to grow the show and gain way more traction. But the likelihood is right now, over the last 6 months, a year, you haven't had a real strategy to grow your show. You've probably been posting on social media, which hasn't probably helped you grow. But when it comes to an overarching strategy of how to get more listeners for your podcast, how to then get those listeners coming back for more, and how to turn those listeners into paying clients for your business, your program, your mentorship, your course, whatever that might be, there's actually no strategy there beyond posting consistently, sharing on social media, and then just hoping that over time the podcast will magically blow up. And I wish that was the case, but it's not. If it were the case, so many more podcasters would have massive shows, gain huge traction, and be rich as, I'm not going to swear, but you know where I'm trying to go here. Everyone would have a massive show that's growing and monetizing. But what's missing for so many podcasters, and what's most likely missing for you, is the fact that you haven't got a real strategy for growth. So again, you shouldn't quit your podcast just because it hasn't picked up traction. I think the more important question to ask is, why is it that you've spent the last 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years on a podcast? Why is it, even though you're posting valuable content consistently, why is it that the podcast still isn't gaining traction? Because there's a reason. And once you have clarity around that, oftentimes it's literally you don't have a strategy. But once you understand the reason why your podcast isn't growing, you don't have a strategy, the solution becomes very simple. You need a strategy to growing. So this is my massive encouragement to not quit the show, because I believe the world is a much better place when the right listeners find the right podcast, and when the right podcasters like yourself with incredible content have the feeling and the fulfillment of reaching their show's full potential, growing their audience way more, and doing something they absolutely love while still being paid tremendously well for it. So if you are in that spot where you're on the verge of quitting, don't. Keep pushing forward. Just gain more clarity around why the show isn't growing, and then start taking simple steps to fix it. We've helped so many podcasters grow and fix their slow growth show, and I'm going to put some results now on the screen. So I'm saying this because I know it's absolutely possible and you can do it, but something does need to change, and it comes down to, again, the strategy you're currently using in order to grow your show. And if you want more step-by-step guides on how to do that exactly, that's what we created this YouTube channel. So go to the channel, look through the back catalog, and gain that clarity, gain that insight around how to grow way faster and make way more money with your show. So with that being said, I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.